Welcome back, everybody, to This Is My Bourbon Podcast. I'm your host, Perry, and I'm on my own. Because if you're keeping up with the recent history of the podcast, I am co-hostless, and I'm back on my own for the first time in 4 years, which is crazy. But the wonderful thing about that is this is still a very well-oiled machine, and I know how to run this thing pretty daggone well. And we're going to keep things afloat, just like we always have, one way or another. And it's pretty weird to be recording this on a Sunday night instead of a Friday afternoon. But here we are, one way or another. We're going to figure out what this looks like. As I said last week when we recorded Eric's last episode, there will be guest co-hosts from time to time. There will be interviews picking back up again. Potentially next week, I might have an interview, depending on what I can get arranged. I've had one or two in the tank in terms of scheduling for a little while, and I think I might be close to getting those ready to go. So we'll see. But in the meantime, I just want to say from the absolute bottom of my heart, thank you so much to everybody who is still sticking around, who is still supporting TIMBP and being a committed follower, I guess. That sounds way too cultish. I don't mean it that way. Just helping what I do with This Is My Bourbon Podcast and what I have been able to do over the past 7.5 years. We are coming up on 8 years in October. We will have episode 400 before too long, which is crazy in and of itself. I cannot believe that is on the horizon sooner than you might think. This is episode 386. And I'm very excited about that. But if you want to maintain your excitement for the content that I make every week, you can head to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast and support the show for as little as $1 a month, but as little as $5 a month. You get bonus content every single week. There are the pregame chats that come out every Tuesday and the uncut, unedited early access to the main episode that happens. The main episode comes out on Wednesdays, but the uncut, unedited, early access comes out on Tuesdays, and then a bonus episode on Mondays as well. All sorts of good times that are being had over there. If you've been keeping up with the show, you know that Eric and I did bonus episodes for a while that went from Pop Chicka Wow Wow, where we opened a bottle, to Samply Irresistible, where we drank on some samples that we might have been sent, to Pours from the Floor, where we would finish off a bottle that had been around in our collection, my collection, his collection, whatever. That is all still going to happen. This week, I opened a bottle of Early Times Bottled and Bond, which this is one of the new Sazerac bottles, and I had some thoughts on it. I was not ready for what was in there. But yeah, if you want to go check that out, along with all the other bonus content, and there's other things you can get over there as well, different tiers on up. Again, patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast. We normally kick off episodes with a segment called Flying Blind. And since I'm on my own, Flying Blind is going to look a little bit different and will not always be a blind sample that I have been sent, but maybe it's a sample of something that I have not had the chance to try, or is something that I have never tried before but has been sent to me, and therein would be a blind experience, kind of. Does that make sense? I kind of hope it does. Behind me is one of my many assorted tables that I've got samples and bottles and whatnot on. And I'm going to pull a sample from it that our buddy Tony Bag of Donuts sent a while ago, and I have not had the chance to get yet. Well, get into my glass yet. And this is a rare character Rio. It is a 6-year, 7-month. And if I am not mistaken, Rio is one of their bourbon products that they offer. This is not the exact pick that Tony sent me. If you're watching the video version, I'm showing a little bit of a visual. But RIO is the barrel abbreviation. The mash bill is 75-21-4. I believe this is just some of their Barton juice that they have at Rare Character. It looks like it's got a copper wax on it. But regardless, this guy is also 116.42 proof. And thank you to Tony for sending this. Right off the bat, for whatever reason, that almost smells dusty. I mean, there's a dusty kind of like snickerdoodly quality to this on the nose. And if you're a long-term listener or viewer of the show, you know that snickerdoodle is not a note that I am too upset with in any capacity, especially because old Elijah Craig, especially like rear age-stated bottles, they had a snickerdoodle note that kind of made me fall in love with bourbon in the first place and helped me start to look into more bourbon products that I would want to really, hone my love around, I suppose. I didn't phrase that particularly well, but I think you understand. Man, it's hard when you don't have anybody to bounce off of all the time. I thought about, and this will be something I do from time to time, depending on when I have availability, but I would like to, when I record, sometimes go live on Twitch as well, do some extra, content over there, turn it into after I get done recording, play some video games as well. The new Switch just came out, of course, which I will talk about during Tips and Bits, so stick around for that at the end of the episode. But yeah, it allows me the chance to kind of have more people to converse with, I suppose. So we'll get there. We'll get there eventually. It's a learning process. Things will figure their way out, I suppose. There's a very distinct kind of like wet oak note hitting on the nose as well. A little bit of cherry syrup too. But overall, I mean, it's just a very decadent, pleasant nose. So cheers, folks. That finish is so nice. The finish turns into like juicy fruit, bubble gum. Almost. Wow. I'm going to take a second sip before I was really focused on the finish for whatever reason. Yeah, the front part of the palate is more savory. Gives more of a baking spice kind of profile. And it's really the back end of the palate that gets into what I'm going to describe with my full chest, I suppose, as juicy fruit. It's very interesting. It's very different. Not like a whole lot of Rios or a whole lot of rare characters that I've had. I mean, that 75-21-4 mash bill can be so diverse for whatever reason, and I'm always surprised. They have the KOAs, they have I mean, I can't even think of the other barrel abbreviations that they have. Doesn't matter. Anyway, the whole point is they get a lot of mileage. I guess VEN is one of the other ones too, but they get a lot of mileage out of that mash bill, and they can do a lot with it. And I'm always very impressed with everything that comes out of those barrels, regardless of what the profile is. But thank you, Tony, for the sample, and I'll be enjoying that for a little while for sure. I'll let you know as well what I've been drinking recently. And it's been one of the more jam-packed weeks for things that I've been drinking. I went over to my father-in-law's house on, what night was this? Tuesday? For just a quick couple of hours hanging out with some buddies. And I brought over a few bottles. I brought over the Gem of Kentucky that Dixon gave me when Eric and I went and recorded with him a few weeks back. I brought over the Willet Small Batch Rye that we reviewed last week. A bottle that I had forgotten that I had. And turned out to be kind of a crowd favorite, but was just something that I had really not thought a whole lot about. But it's the Single Batch Nation. And no, I did not say that wrong. That is the name of the label in this case, Single Batch Nation, Indiana bourbon. It's at least 4 years old. It's 107 proof. I don't remember how many products are in this batch, but it does come from Single Cask Nation. It's really quite interesting. Just a very kind of sweet, little more floral, not quite as dark as I typically would prefer from a bourbon in general, but just an exploration into what a different side of MGP blended whiskeys could look like. And I was really shocked to find out how much I enjoyed it, especially after having not had it in so long. Kind of standard fare otherwise, up until Friday afternoon, when I had initially been planning to go to cover some of the International Wine and Spirits competition, which was being held, or the judging portion of it was being held in Bardstown. And they wound up shortening things up a little bit, and so that worked out fine. I wasn't able to really take off work anyway earlier in the week, and so they said they were doing a tasting at Justin's House of Bourbon in Lexington, and I said, that's awesome, I could still make that, and so I did, and had an awesome tasting with Caroline, whom, if you've not met at Justin's, she is wonderful, and then Justin Sloan, who is one of the owners at Justin's House of Bourbon, just an awesome, awesome human being, just incredible people. And they set up a 4 bourbon flight for us. Started with Maker's Mark, which you might think you go to a place like Justin's House of Bourbon, and why on earth are they serving us regular Maker's Mark? Well, the reason behind it is because the next pour was Maker's 101 from 1996, which was a Japanese export only at the time. That was, of course, around the period where they were not doing American or domestic, rather, products that included things like, higher proof makers or anything outside of the norm for makers other than their 90 proof product. Just a really interesting comparison between, and this is coming from somebody too who is very, of course, familiar with Maker's Mark as a brand and has seen how Maker's has changed over the past decade, I would say, and not necessarily in a bad way, because I don't think that Maker's has taken a turn for the worse, but it definitely doesn't taste the way that I remember when I started drinking bourbon, if that makes sense. There is more of a grain to it than I remember. It's certainly, and especially when I was drinking it on Friday, there was more of a quality to it that reminded me of their White Dog. And I've done their tour a handful of times, and they always give you the opportunity to try their White Dog, their unaged spirit, while you are on the tour, or at least they used to. The last couple of times that I was there, the last couple of times I did the tour, and I have a hard time imagining that Maker's is putting 4-year-old product into their blends now. I mean, surely it's still around 6 or 7 years old. I don't know. It could have been that I was having a weirdly hyper-focused day where it just tasted grainier to me. I don't know. But the 96 101 was incredibly robust, just so full of, like, the note that kept getting floated around was like raisins and just a very, like, dark, delicious, robust pour. And I loved it so much. Next we had an Old Fitzgerald from 1977. That was Stitzel Weller. And this is only one of like 2 or 3 times that I've ever had Stitzel Weller in my entire bourbon journey, my entire bourbon career, I suppose. And I'm of multiple minds about this, of course. And, you know, I'm one of those people who says, I think you should spend your money elsewhere on like experiences and things that have a longer lifespan than a bottle of whiskey, you know. But I mean, if you're careful with a bottle of whiskey, you can probably make a good investment in it, of course. That being said, though, the hype around Stitzel Weller is still real. Not to be passé or to, you know, use a cliche about it, I suppose. But there's a reason that it gained traction in the first place. And I'm not saying, you know, take out a second mortgage or spend more money than you would ever consider spending on one bottle of whiskey. But easy for a couple $100, or even, you know, I mean, spend judiciously. But also, I'm not a financial manager. Do whatever you want. It's your money. It was phenomenal. It was incredible. Just having come off of trying the Old Fitz Bottled and Bond that just came out, the 7-year from Heaven Hill, the new shelf stable release. Just a complete night and day. And that's not even to say that the new Old Fitz is bad. It's just, it's not what, I mean, of course, what this Old Fitz was. This Old Fitz was 8 years and 90 proof, by the way. It was the 1849, I believe is what that label is called. I can't remember off the top of my head. I put it on my Instagram story. If I remember to, I'll put it in the video version as well, at least a picture of it. And then last but not least, we tried the Blackwood from the guys at Justin's House of Bourbon, their private label. It was a toasted bourbon at 105 proof. Absolutely phenomenal. Just a really, really good pour. I think that when those bourbons first came out, it was not... I don't remember particularly feeling strongly one way or another, just kind of like in the middle, which I don't want to be like, lukewarm on a lot of things. But this in particular, I was like, I don't know about this, man. And then this just seemed really solid. I thought that they really put their best foot forward with it. And then there were some other things that I can't talk about that we tried. So, spoilery, not even really spoilery, but I mean, well, maybe a little bit, but I can't talk too much or else I'll get in trouble. All right, folks, we are doing another installment in one of my favorite series on this show. It's called The Best Way to Drink. And here, what I do is I take one bourbon, and I take 4 different drinking styles, and see if there's a preferred way to consume said bourbon out of the 4. So this time, I'm taking Benchmark Foolproof. And the reason that I'm taking Benchmark Foolproof is because of a suggestion from our buddy Sully in our Discord group, who said, have you done a best way to drink evaluation of Benchmark Foolproof? I think a lot of whiskey drinkers are going to lean into budget pours in 2025, especially if the economy pinches any harder, and it might be great to expand frugal options for whiskey enthusiasts. And this is something I had considered doing in the past, and I just hadn't gotten around to it, and I figured, I'm recording at night, and at the very least, I can just go to sleep after I get done, should things go a little bit silly. So we'll find out. There are, as I said, 4 different options for this. We have neat, we have splash of water, we have on the rocks, and we have with cola. In this case, historically, we've used Coke Zero. So, replace it however you would like to, in this case, just using Coke Zero. So, we're just going to start here with neat, and see what we think about it. Now, I also want to provide this disclaimer, about, Benchmark Foolproof as well. This is not my favorite higher proof bourbon. But kind of piggybacking off of what Sully said in the Discord, this is still not a bad, higher proof budget pour. This is like a sub $30, usually around $22 to $25, 125 proof bourbon. Roughly around 4 to 5 or 6 years old. I mean, when it first came out, it was very clear that they were using at least Mash Bill 1 from Buffalo Trace, maybe Mash Bill 2. It's kind of hard to tell. There's not a whole lot of transparency with what they were doing. I think we have a review of it that Swan and I did way back in the day, in preparation for when my first daughter was born, and that just hasn't come out yet. So maybe one week I'll do that, just to get it out there for the heck of it, I guess. I don't know, maybe. But it's definitely changed over the years. There was a period about, I would say, maybe 2 years ago, maybe even less than that. I don't know. I don't remember for sure, where they changed. And I think, I don't know if this was confirmed or not, but it was at least very heavily implied by people who had inside information that instead of using their rye bourbon mash bills, they were using reject wheated bourbons that didn't quite make the cut for products like Weller, of course. So that being said, I think it's rebounded a little bit in quality over the past year or so, 6 months to a year. I still grab a bottle of this every now and then. I think it's really pretty solid for what it is. It's, not my go-to. I still would prefer something like Knob Creek Single Barrel, Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, if I can afford it at the time. I recently found a honey hole too that I'm not going to, divulge what the location of for some older Elijah Craig barrel proofs, and it's at an excellent price. So I might be I might be diving into that well a little bit more in the near future. So we'll see. But all that being said, though, let's start out with the neat pour of Benchmark Full Proof. And by the way, this is 125 proof. I don't think I said that before. Werther's Original Caramel. Sweet corn. A little bit of like creme brulee, too. Little black pepper. I mean, really not like a super, intense or bold, brilliant nose. Just, it's present. It's good. It's going to kind of get you where you want to go for the proof, That being said, though, let's dive in. Caramel apple. A pretty good French vanilla note midway through there, too. A little bit of baking spices. Overall, I mean, it's fine. The finish is a little bit soft. Not like blowing me away or anything, but I like it quite a bit. I mean, it's inoffensive, I think, inoffensive is probably not the right word. There's nothing about it that's making me go, ew, I can't drink this. I don't like this. Sometimes you get these like younger, higher proof bourbons where everything is just green and grassy and you feel like you can't even sip on it and you have to spit it out or, just choke down the rest of the pour. And this just is not one of them. I think that Benchmark Full Proof does exactly what it sets out to do, especially at the price point. If you're looking for something that even, you want to like take on a little trip that is going to be a good little nightcap, help you maybe a little bit easier. I don't know. Maybe it's not a bad idea. I just don't mind Benchmark Full Proof. Do I wish that it were a little bit darker, a little bit more, punchy in the face? Yeah, of course I do. But Benchmark's not necessarily known for that. Benchmark famously, or infamously rather, just the old number 8 or whatever they call it, the black label, is the only bourbon that I have ever experienced that has immediately given me a headache. And if you go back far enough in the TIMBP catalog, I mean, talking like within the first 100 episodes, this is when Curtis and Tanner were still co-hosts on the podcast. And if you don't know who they are, hi, you've not been around the podcast for very long. But they were co-hosts on the podcast when the show first started out. And Curtis and I did an episode where we reviewed just bottom of the shelf, like supposed to be some of the worst bourbons you could possibly get. And Benchmark Black Label Old Number 8 was in there. And sure enough, immediately gave me a headache. I think the episode was called Bourbon Torture or something. It was called like, This is Bourbon Torture. It was bad. It was not great. After this episode, go and check it out. Please. So, like it neat. Let's check it out with a dash of water, a splash of water. I've never done this with liquid death before. That was probably too much water. Oh, well. It was like a quarter of an ounce of water. What do you think is a splash of water in your bourbon? Let me know. Because I don't have a good, metric for it. I sometimes it could be like a couple drops. Sometimes it could be, if you've got it on ice, it could be until it's like the glass is full of water, or water and bourbon. I don't know. Anyway. immediately it just kind of makes it smell more like Buffalo Trace. And I think I might have... Did I goof? I mean, it's just the exact same as the first one, but everything is so much softer and less pronounced. I think it just like the nose has kind of fallen apart, oddly enough. I'm wondering if I should redo this with less water. Let's do a side-by-side here. I want to make sure that I didn't like fully just nerf that pour. Because I'm at least one who doesn't like a whole lot of water added to bourbon. I think that's probably better. That was probably the equivalent of like 5 or 6 drops, I would say. While that's doing some mingling, I'll go back to the 1/4 ounce of water. I mean, it just really turned it into like corn pudding. Okay, I don't love the what it's done to the palate there. The finish is not terrible. The finish really kind of is that sweet corn. Oh, but it makes it grainy. It's okay. It really does nuke it with that much water, though. Okay. A dash of water, like a couple drops. That is a much more enjoyable experience than just like dumping water into it. I think that did something that actually helped bring out character. Because now I'm getting what feels like a more well-balanced, more characteristic, or full of character bourbon. Like it feels like it gave it more age for some reason. I'm really, really getting what feels like a more defined oak note on the nose. Okay. Starts out good. Midway through the palate, kind of goes woof. Like it gets kind of like medicinal on the finish too. Midway through the palate into the finish, it gets medicinal, and it doesn't really improve. It goes kind of graham crackery on the finish too, which I don't mind. But I don't know if adding water really is the best thing for this. Neat still, I think, is a much better experience than either two. All right, we're going to try On the Rock, or Rocks, or whatever. I just have one giant ice cube, or sphere, or Death Star. Because that's what I have, is a Death Star. Now, of course, I think a lot of people know, too, that if you use, like, rock or a sphere, it's going to dilute the spirit or the bourbon, the whiskey slower, and yada, 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 than it would with, like, a larger, or excuse me, more pieces of ice. I know that's true. I don't think it, like, whatever. I like it because it's got a Death Star on it. I just like novelty ice molds more than anything. I'm not trying to get like perfect clear ice. I'm not trying to do anything crazy. I'm a Star Wars nerd. I like the Death Star ice mold. I had Stormtrooper ones at one point, and I don't know what happened to those. I think they might have gotten thrown away in a move or something. Who's to say? You know, sometimes you don't have a better way to describe it other than like, that just smells like bourbon. It just smells like good bourbon on the rocks. I'll be honest with you. There kind of feels like something about this where it's starting to get a little dilute. All right, let me take a sip first before I finish this thought. That's not too bad. Boy, it really brings out the youth, though. It kind of strips it away of a lot of the oak. I don't think that this is their wheated bourbon. I don't think that this is like a secret Weller. I think it's much more likely that this is at least back to being, if it ever was their wheated bourbon, back to being their rye. At least mash bill 1. I'd be surprised if they ever used mash bill 2. But it's still like got a spice forward flavor to it. The finish is really nice. The finish makes it feel kind of creamy almost into more of a cocktail. But up front, the age just gets absolutely decimated. We just lose all of the oak, oddly enough. And I'm afraid with just like the ounce that I poured, it's going to become mostly water and not a whole lot of bourbon very quickly. So that being said, though, what are you going to do? I can only have so much during, podcast recording, I suppose. And then last but not least, we're doing bourbon and cola. And like I said, I'm just using Coke Zero. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. This smells different. Kind of smells more Dr. Peppery than it does Cokey. I'll be honest with you. Cola-y. I don't know if I like that. Nothing's working about that. There's nothing working. there's just nothing working about that. How odd. I mean, it's a perfectly serviceable bourbon and Coke, I suppose, but it doesn't really read as like very bourbon forward, even for a 125 proof bourbon. What is happening? Why is it acting like that? I'm going to add a little bit of bourbon to it to see if that changes anything. I mean, I just got the Coke Zero. It can't be like old, right? Okay, well, the Coke expired last week. But it's Coke, though. Like, Cokes don't just go bad that quick. What is happening? I'm kind of losing my mind here. This is so strange. You know what I will note about this, though, is that it's making it taste like what I remember Coke tasting like when I was a kid. Oddly enough. I know they didn't like change the recipe of Coke or the flavor of Coca-Cola or anything. But I remember Coke tasting different from when I was a kid. Till now, at least. I need confirmation on this. This is one of the weirdest best way to drinks I've ever done, because everything past neat is like, I don't get why none of these work. I'm going to go back to water. Or excuse me, rock. It turned it almost bitter after sitting on the rocks for too long. Hang on, let me take a drink of water just to make sure I'm not going absolutely insane. Nope, I'm not. It goes bitter. Oh, okay. Well, let's go back to our drops of water experiment to see if anything's changed there. Too much water just tastes like young Buffalo Trace. Oh, and the less water is not bad. The less water has actually helped it open up quite a bit. Okay. We got a contender. We have a contender for neat and a little bit of water. Not a whole lot of water. Not a whole lot of water, but like a few drops, which is where I think I really went wrong with the first time I tried adding water. I'm telling you, man, that neat's getting better and better. Actually, this might be the first time since we started doing Best Way to Drink that with water has won. I don't remember for sure, actually, now that I think about it. But the Best Way to Drink benchmark foolproof is with a couple drops of added water. I mean, I said it was probably I used an ounce and it was probably like 5 or 6 drops of water. So, tough to say for sure, but it's really good, man. I'm genuinely kind of surprised at how much I like that. I was not prepared for that, in general. But anyway, moving on though, this is the segment of the show known as Barrel Rings, which you can be a part of if you would like to. If you'd be so inclined, you can do so though by calling our hotline. I say hotline, it's like we're always waiting by it. We're not. It's a voicemail system, basically. Or by leaving us a text message, sending us a text message. But that number is 859-428-8253. If you're watching, the number's on your screen right now. Once again, that's 859-428-8253. We got a couple texts, and we got a voicemail as well. We'll start with our first text. This comes from John P. He said, fellas, I was listening the other day and wanted to give my 2 cents on Eric's Beaumont Inn story. My wife and I happened to be there for her birthday. We were all sitting there patiently waiting for everybody to show up so Dixon could start when the mutant, Eric, finally walked through the door. Just kidding. They weren't the last couple to show up. The couple that is a story for a different day. The tasting was a blast, but like Eric said, the small gathering after it was over the top. We all brought some of our own bourbons to share it with everybody. And yes, Dixon broke out a fresh bottle of the Kentucky Owl Dry State. We were able to share some treats we brought for our road trip with Eric, and even sent him some boxes and samples of Mayor Pingree when we got back to Minnesota. My wife and I talk about the evening quite often, especially when Eric FaceTimed Grease and he's saying happy birthday shirtless to my wife. Here's a picture that says it all. And it's a picture it's the hard picture of Dixon and Eric. And it's just awesome. And John, I don't know if I realized that this, I wouldn't say connection, but at least like that there was, I don't know. The bourbon world is always a little bit smaller than I think it is. And I'm sure that Eric told me that there was somebody there that knew who he was when he was there for this evening, for this tasting. And it kind of slipped my mind, I would say. But either way, I love that story. I love still hearing about that evening as well. This is a voicemail that I'm just gonna play, and we're gonna hear it together.
All right, so I'm driving home. Hey, this is Chad, my daily bourbon, or Che, as Eric likes to say. Man, what the is going on? Eric, the whiskey mutant, has left. Harry is on his own. Is this the damn Wild Wild West? What is going on here? I don't even understand the podcast anymore. I'm scared. I'm afraid. Eric, you doing? Harry, you doing? I'm self-censoring, by the way. Also, love you guys. Sad Eric gone. Harry, I love you. I hope, Harry, we have a good recovery from what's going on. This guy trying to pass around New Circle Roads being a prick. Better hurry up. Anyway, love you. You guys have a great day. Eric, you won't hear this, except as a fan. Harry, you will. Mwah. Mwah.
So if you didn't understand, that was Chad, my daily bourbon, sending his well wishes post Eric's departure. Well, I mean, as Eric's departure. This was from Wednesday of last week. But yeah, it is the wild, wild west of the podcast right now. I don't know what's going to happen, but as you're probably, as you can probably tell, we're just gonna kind of see where things go. And a solo episode this week, I don't know. I've been having fun with it at the very least. We'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together. And this last text comes from our buddy W. Leb. He says, "Greetings, Perry and Eric." So this is before he realized that Eric was not on the show anymore. In the last episode, you had mixed a couple of bourbons together. Normally, when I have leftovers that won't make a complex pour, I add them into a common jar. It got me thinking, and I combined a little bit of these two. And he sent a picture, and it's Maker's Mark Cask Strength and Buffalo Trace, just regular Buffalo Trace. Very interesting chemistry. Together, they do not taste like you would think, given the distinct qualities of each of them alone. The art of blending is mind-blowing. Another note, every time I watch you guys on YouTube, I notice that you, Perry, are always or almost always holding a microphone in your hand. Eric, why don't you get to hold anything? Have a great week. I'm not holding my mic as much this week, I will say. I kind of am adjusting it every now and then for wherever my head moves or my mouth moves. But it's also like a nervous compulsion thing, I think. I'm always like checking myself in my monitor. If you're watching the YouTube version, I'm looking down at I'm doing it right now as I'm talking. But I will look down at my my monitor, my screen, my iPad, whatever I have up in front of me, to make sure that everything looks semi okay. To make sure I'm not like, just completely out of whack, I suppose. But yeah, I mean, Eric can do whatever the heck he wants to now. I mean, the guy's, he's completely dead to me. I don't know, whatever. I don't care. That's not true. As I said last week, no hard feelings towards what Eric's decisions, or anything that he had to go to. What am I saying here? No hard feelings towards Eric or his decisions, or anything. It is what it is, man. I'm happy for him. I'm happy for this new phase in his life, and yeah, that's it, man. That's it. High Proof Hot Takes is the next segment of the show, where I might vent about things that have been annoying me or pissing me off, or I need to get off my chest, and I'm just a tired dad. I don't know. What else do I have to say? Like, this is normally something that I would talk about before I start recording. But oh my gosh, man. Kids will wear you out, dude. I tell you. And this is nothing that, if you are a parent, you won't understand. But I I was working on podcast stuff earlier, and I got a call from Lucy while she was on the way home from her mom's, and she said, Eden needs to talk to you. And I was like, oh, awesome. I'm happy to talk to her. And Eden was like, Daddy, I really miss you. I want you to snuggle with me, before bed. And I was like, I'm happy to do it. I cannot wait. I'm so excited to snuggle with you. It's like part of our nighttime ritual. Like, one of us gets her, like, reads to her, and then the other one snuggles with her, kind of wind her down for bed. And then right before, it was time for her to go pick out her book. She stops in the hallway and looks at me and goes, I don't want you to snuggle with me. I want Mommy to snuggle with me. I was like, what? Come on, man. Oh, and yesterday, I hadn't gotten dressed yet. And I mean, I had like underwear on. I wasn't walking around the house naked or anything. And she looks up at me and she goes, Daddy, I love your big belly. And I was like, I don't have a big belly. She goes, yes, you do. You have a big fat belly. I love your big fat belly, Daddy. Look at it. It's a big fat belly. I was like, High Proof Hot Take. There is no parenting hack. These kids are out for blood. They will get you. Don't ever think that you are in the clear. It's always tough. There's no book, man. Tips and bits, though, segment of the show where I recommend things that I've been watching, reading, listening to, enjoying, that I also want you to go and check out. And this week has been the release of the Nintendo Switch 2, which is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the most expensive Nintendo console of all time, which also brought with it the most expensive Nintendo games releases of all time. And look, I am what could be described as a Nintendo fanboy. I think that's pretty inarguable if you've listened to the podcast for long enough. I love Nintendo. I have a lot of nostalgia for it. They're the games that I grew up playing. Also, this Bourbon and Coke with Benchmark Foolproof has only gotten worse. I'm going to have to just put it to the side. It's getting dumped down the drain. I'm sorry. I'm not even going to joke around about it. It's going away. And I'm not even saying that like Nintendo does things perfectly with their business practices. I don't think that they do. I think that they're a pretty like frustrating company at times, especially when it comes to product releases, when it comes to the way that they treat backwards compatibility with games. And I don't think that the Switch 2 has been an all-around like perfect console either, at least on release. I mean, I'm only really, as of recording, about 48 hours into, my experience with it. And I spent, 6 or 7 years with the Switch, the original Switch. I loved it. It was my go-to system. Had an incredible time playing so many different games, and I always just felt like there was more that Nintendo could do with it, and it feels like the Switch 2 is going to be that step up, and I'm very excited for that. But that's kind of an aside from like what the experience has been so far with it, and the experience so far with it has been largely positive. There are upgrades for games like Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom that you can purchase, or if you're this is not an ad, by the way. I just realized it sounded like I was doing an ad for Nintendo. They can pay me money if they want me to actually talk exclusively positively about them. I'm not going to. They've got problems. But anyway, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, you can pay for like upgrades for like visual quality and some other like add-ons within both of the games. There's some other like upgrades too, but there's a bunch of like third-party games that came out, like Yakuza, Cyberpunk came out as well on the Switch 2 that, I mean, could never run on the first Switch, that I think is like encouraging for what this console can do. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the potential for other, companies, other games to eventually come to this console, to come to this company too. I don't know if it's going to happen, but I have hope for it at least. But I'll talk about like, the day one release, which everybody's been raving about, and I have had a lot of fun with. I haven't gotten the chance to like play online or play with friends yet, but I have absolutely loved Mario Kart World. Just a beautiful looking game, first and foremost. Something about the 4K Switch is nice. Having Nintendo games being brought finally into what feels like the 21st century, but most importantly, like the 2020s more than anything, is nice. The redesign of these Nintendo characters, the upgraded visuals, the controls are still familiar to those. So, like, if you haven't played a Mario Kart game in a while, you're going to be able to jump right into it and still feel like you know what you're doing. It's just overall a very fun and familiar experience. I've played it for, not even like 10 hours, and I feel like I've unlocked a bunch of things, and I I know that I have barely scratched the surface of it. And I know that I'm going to keep playing it and going back and trying to, perfect what is supposed to be, largely useless skills. But I just love Nintendo games. I love Mario Kart. I love Zelda, and seeing it in the most picturesque, perfect way possible. And, video game nerds, I think, will understand that. And I hope that I've not, alienated too many people in that way. But the whole point is, this is a console that I have waited a long time for, and I am very, very happy to, it's sitting right next to my computer right now. I'm looking forward to winding down my evening by playing some more Mario Kart. On my new, I bought a new monitor as well for this for this console because I wanted to experience all of the glory of 4K. And I'll be streaming more Nintendo Switch stuff too on Twitch. So stay tuned for that once I kind of get my schedule figured out a little bit more with recording and try to lock in some more finite details of how that looks. But all that being said, though, it's just been fun. I don't even know if I can recommend like dropping all that money for if you are not, financially stable or comfortable with dropping almost $500 for this gaming console. I mean, don't by any means, but there are ways to like trade in other consoles and then, get credit for it or whatever. And again, like, I'm not saying do it immediately. There will be price drops. There will be ways to, work around it, not work around it, but work towards it, I suppose. But all that being said, though, I am very happy with it, and I'm very excited for what is next and to play some of these AAA games too that I've waited a long time for. I'm actually like genuinely excited to play Cyberpunk. Like, I've always wanted to check that game out, and I've never had the chance to. I've never had a piece of hardware that's been powerful enough to play Cyberpunk. So, Cyberpunk 2077. Sorry, I should have clarified. Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, Switch 2. More thoughts to come. I'll be kind of reviewing it, I think, as more games come out. There's a new Donkey Kong game, Bonanza, next month that I will be immersed in. I'm sure. Oh, I cannot wait for that game. Well, I'm already like losing my mind thinking about it. But anyway, I think that about does it for this week's episode. Other than letting you know that you can support the show by heading to patreon.com/mybourbonpodcast for as little as $1 a month. For as little as $5 a month, though, you can get a bunch of bonus content every single daggum week, including but not limited to the bonus episodes that come out every single Monday, the pregame chats that come. Sorry, I'm scratching my eye. I just got a little like sleepy. The pregame chats that come out every Tuesday, and early access, unedited bonus stuff just for the Patreon version of the podcast on Tuesday as well. Before the main episode comes out on Wednesday, as well as some other stuff only available to patrons. You also have access to our Discord just through Patreon, only through the paid tiers, though. Free tier, free members don't have access. But anybody who supports the show on Patreon, we do appreciate you. You're the best. Yeah, I keep saying we. It's just me. It's just me. But still, thank you. If you want to send an email with questions or comments, please feel free to. This is mybourbonshop@gmail.com. I check that email every day. I'm happy to hear your thoughts and read them out on the show. if you would like for me to do so, or we can just keep them between us. I don't care. You can also follow on social media at my Bourbon Pod. If you also want to follow me personally, I'm at pritter1792 on pretty much every social media channel. Sometimes it's like prit78, PRITT78 or 87 in some weird places. I don't know. I was like, I don't know. I couldn't like make up my mind early on, but now I've landed on pritter1792 as a pretty solid handle, username, whatever. What else do I do here? If you want to find all of our I am going to have to talk through this for a little bit, I think. But if you want to find all of the apparel and merchandise for the show, you can head to bourbonshop.threadless.com. I do all that. That's all me. I design all that stuff that is over there. Sorry we never got around to releasing the Whiskey Mutant merch over there. That's... Sorry. What do you want? Timing doesn't always work out. You know what I mean? You can send us stuff to our P.O. Box as well at P.O. Box 22609 Lexington, Kentucky 40522. If you have things that you want to send, samples, bottles, mail, correspondence, handwritten letters, whatever, I'll check it out. I'll read it, drink it, whatever. I don't care. Just nothing that's going to hurt me, please. I would appreciate it. And then last but not least, please support the show by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on your podcast app of choice. And I will find it and I will read it out here on the show. I know that there was one recently that I found on a podcast app that I had never seen before. And I was like, I was very surprised. Oh, it was from Castbox. And I was like going through podcast apps that we were popular on. And I was like, I should probably check and see if we had anything that, any comments or anything, any reviews. And sure enough, this was from Jeff Bork on May 28th. So last month. And Jeff said, after hearing your tasting of the Barrel Rye Batch 1, and I think you have talked about it previously, I decided to go grab one today. My local honey hole still has 6 bottles on the shelf. Hope it's as good as advertised. It is. It's very good. And I hope you enjoy it. And I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of the podcast. I will see you next week in some capacity, whether I have a guest or a guest host or something. We will find out together. This has been fun. I appreciate you. Until next time, though, I'm Perry. And this is my Bourbon Podcast.